Someone asked me a question recently. Actually, it wasn't recently. It's a question I get asked all the time. Every week, almost. From women who found out that I lost over 100 pounds in my mid 40s, naturally, no injections, no pills, no procedures, no surgery, and who want to understand how. And specifically, they want to understand the moment, the one moment. They ask, what was your aha moment? What was the thing that changed everything for you? What was the realization? What was the awakening? What was the aha moment? And I always pause when they ask that because I know what they're hoping for. I know the story they want. And I also know that my answer is going to disappoint them. They want the movie version, the cinematic arc. The heroine, that's me, struggles for years, and then one day, something amazing happens. One thing, a dramatic moment of clarity, an awakening, a lightning bolt of a realization, and after that one magic moment, everything changes. And the heroine loses the weight, she transforms, life becomes wonderful, credits roll. And it's a great story. I understand why people want it, because if there's one moment that changed everything for me, maybe there's one moment that could change everything for them. And they want to find that one moment. They want to manufacture it or wait for it or do whatever it takes to have their own version of that one aha moment. So they ask me, what was your one aha moment? And then I tell them the truth. And you can see the instant disappointment cross their face. Because the truth is this: there was no single aha moment for me. There were many, spread across years, and there still are. But here's what I've come to understand, and what I want to spend this entire episode showing you, that this is not actually the disappointing answer. This is actually the more honest and better answer. This is the answer that explains why my transformation has lasted, why it held, why years later I'm still living this life and not back to where I started like so many times before. Because multiple aha moments is not a consolation prize for not having the one great dramatic turning point. Instead, I think it's the actual mechanism of lasting change. And today, I'm going to take you through mine, not to necessarily inspire you with somebody else's story, but to help you find your own story, your own aha moments. Let's go. Now, before we get into it, I want to personally welcome you to my podcast. I'm Vera Brown, weight loss, health, and fitness coach for women 40 and above who want to lose weight and transform their health naturally and sustainably. After struggling with my weight and health for decades in the corporate world and as an entrepreneur, I lost more than 100 pounds in my mid 40s and have kept it off. No pills, no injections, no procedures, no extremes, no tracking. In my podcast, I share what worked for me, including actionable strategies. I discuss fitness, nutrition, sleep, stress, and mindset to help you achieve your weight loss and health transformation goals. Join me. Now let's get into it. Now, before I tell you my aha moments, I want to spend a little time on why we want the one single aha moment so badly. Because I think understanding that desire tells us something really important. Here's the thing: we as humans are wired for stories. Our brains are pattern seeking, narrative building machines. And the pattern we find most satisfying in stories and films, in the things we tell ourselves about how change happens, is that clean arc, the clear before and after, the single turning point. It's also, if I'm being brutally honest, I think a way of outsourcing the responsibility a little bit. Because if somebody else had one magic moment that sparked everything, then maybe to transform, I just need to find my one magic moment. Maybe I haven't transformed because I just haven't found my one magic moment yet. And maybe when that one magic moment comes, everything will finally click and becomes easier. And until then, I can wait. Now, let's be honest for a second. Does any of that sound familiar? No shame, no judgment. If it does, I've been there. I want you to genuinely think about that for a second. Have you been waiting for your aha moment? For your one magical moment that changes everything? Have you been wondering when it's going to arrive? When the thing is going to happen to finally make you truly permanently ready to change? Because I know I spent years in that waiting room, years of thinking that I hadn't quite found the right motivation yet, that the real shift was coming, that at some point in the future, something magically would happen that would make this feel different than from all the other times. And I would finally truly be ready because I had experienced that one magical aha moment. But I was wrong. And the thing is that the research on motivation and sustainable health change tells us something really important about this. Studies consistently show that external events or dramatic emotional moments can start the engine. They can absolutely be the thing that gets you moving, for sure. But they are almost never what keeps you going. What keeps you going is something deeper, more personal, more connected to your values and your vision for your own life. And that depth of motivation is almost never built on a single moment. It's built through accumulation, through multiple touch points through your life, through returning again and again to the reasons why this matters. And researchers who study long term behavior change describe two types of motivation. The approach motivation is moving towards something you want. And then you also have the avoidance motivation that is moving away from something you fear. And the thing is, I don't know about you personally, but both of those speak to me. And the research bears that out. It shows that both are valid, both are real. Both engage different parts of your brain and serve different psychological functions. And for most people who make lasting change, myself included, both are present, not just one or the other, both. Moving towards something you want and moving away from something you fear. And that is absolutely exactly what I found in my own health journey. And I'll use that methodology to share with you some of my aha moments, and I'll split them in two categories: the things that I desperately wanted to move away from, and the things that I desperately wanted to move towards. And today, I'm going to get raw, vulnerable, open in the hopes that this will help another woman out there. And today, I'm going to tell you about both. Now, let me start with what I call the negative aha moments. Not negative in the sense that they were bad to have. They were actually amongst the most important and clarifying experiences of my life, but negative in the sense that they were about pain, about fear, about the visceral firsthand experience of consequences I desperately didn't want to live. Now, the first one is my knees. Oh, yes, joint pain. Many of you might be able to relate to this. Now, I want to give you just a tiny bit of context here. Since I was a teenager, I trained seriously as a tennis player. And like many young athletes who push their bodies hard, I developed knee issues early. Not incredibly dramatic, but certainly there. And I always had this persistent awareness carried quietly throughout the years and into adulthood and onwards that my knees were something I need to be careful with, that they had limits, that they could, if I wasn't mindful, become something that genuinely limited my life. Now, fast forward to my early 40s when I started my 100-pound transformation. I had decided that I was done. I was done with the cycle of trying and stopping and trying again. I was done with carrying the weight that I was carrying. I was ready. I was motivated. And I decided that I was going to run. Now, I want you to think about that image for a second of someone who is, with all the love in the world to myself, to my former self and my past self, and all the compassion to someone who is more than 100 pounds overweight, lacing up their running shoes, heading out the door, genuinely excited, genuinely determined to run. That was me. And I want you to hold that image because I want you to feel the gap between the intention and the reality, because the reality came fast. For a few days, I did a few short jogs, nothing heroic, nothing extreme, just the beginning. And then, without much warning, it happened. My knees, the knees that had been quietly waiting in the background for decades, the ones I'd always known were a risk, the ones I'd been careful with since I was a teenager, they'd had enough. The inflammation was severe, the pain was extraordinary. And I ended up, and I'm not actually exaggerating this at all, and I really want you to hear this. I ended up unable to get out of bed without assistance, using hiking poles to walk 2 or 3 steps to the bathroom in my early 40s, not in my 80s, not in my 70s, in my early 40s. And I lay there with that knee inflammation for those weeks in real pain. And I had a thought that I've never been quite able to shake since. And it's the thought that if this is what my body's doing now, what does it look like in 10 years, in 20? If I cannot walk 3 steps to the bathroom unassisted without pain in my 40s, what does 60 look like for me? What does 70 look like? What does 80 and beyond? And that fear was not abstract. It was visceral and immediate and completely devastatingly real. And it was one of the most important aha moments I ever have had. Not because it made me feel good, but because it made me feel terrified. But here's the thing, sometimes terrified is exactly the right thing to feel. Now, let me share a second negative aha moment with you. And this one actually is even harder to tell. Not because it was more painful than the knees, it wasn't. Although in a different way, it actually was. Because it involved a moment of genuine kindness from a stranger that landed like an absolute punch in the gut. I was in the underground in London, the subway, metro, underground, and a young man offered me his seat. It was a busy underground, but he happened to be sitting. I was standing, and he offered me his seat. And now you might think, okay, that's nice. People offer their seats to others all the time. What's the big deal? And you're right. Except this man was maybe a couple years younger than me, if that. And it turned out the reason that he offered me his seat is because he thought I was pregnant. Here's the thing, I was not pregnant. I was simply very overweight. And again, I say this with the most love and self empathy that I can. But I want to stay here for a moment because I think the particular cruelty of that moment, and I do use the word cruelty, even though the young man was being nothing but kind, The cruelty was in the kindness. If somebody had been rude to me, I could have been angry. I could have defended myself, but this person, this young man, was genuinely trying to be helpful. He looked at me and he thought he saw somebody who needed a seat because a specific person, and he offered it. And at that moment, I had to decide what to do. And that split second, when you feel your face going through about 15 different emotions simultaneously, and you have to choose which one to show while holding back the tears and the embarrassment, I said, "Oh, no, no, thanks. I'm good." And I stood. But actually, I literally got out at the very next stop so that I could take a different train because the whole experience was so deeply upsetting. And I carried that moment for a very, very long time, not with anger, and maybe not even with self pity, but with a specific, clarifying, uncomfortable awareness of where I was, of what was visible, of the gap between how I felt on the inside, how I wanted to live life, and what was apparent on the outside. That was an aha moment for me. One of many, but one that stayed. And I want to share a third negative aha moment with you. It might resonate with you. This one's different in tone. It's almost funny, if you've got a bit of a dark sense of humor. And I say almost because at the time, in the moment, it was many things, but it was not funny. Um, I used to walk a specific sort of neighborhood walk in my neighborhood, a fairly ordinary walk, not a hike, not a challenge, just a neighborhood walk that most reasonably healthy people would describe as easy, moderate. And I was doing that walk regularly. Good for me. But it was an effort. It was noticeable. I was aware of my breath in a way that you're aware of your breath when something that should be easy is actually hard. And one day on that walk, I was passed by a woman who must have been in her 80s, and she was walking her small dog. And she was moving at a gentle, unhurried, and what seemed like to me completely effortless pace. And she passed me. Not quickly, not dramatically, but just steadily and without what appeared to be too much effort whatsoever. And I watched her pass me and then continue walking ahead of me. And I thought something I will never completely forget. I thought she is 40 years older than me. And this is harder for me than it is for her. And there was no anger in that thought, no self criticism, just a very clear, very quiet understanding that something had gone wrong, that something had to change, that the trajectory I was on, if I did nothing, if things continued as they were, was not the trajectory that woman was on. And I knew with certain sharp clarity which trajectory I wanted for my life. And I want to share another negative aha moment because I think this one resonates with a lot of women. I know I'm not alone in this one. And this is about a photograph. And I want to share this because this is the one I think about the most. Not because it was the most dramatic, but because of what I understood about it later, about what it was really about and what it was really costing me. A few years ago, before I lost 100 pounds, somebody took a photo of me. I don't remember the occasion, but I remember seeing the photo afterwards, a few months later, and I remember the specific jarring disorientation of not recognizing myself. Not in the way that anyone sometimes thinks they look different in photos than they look in the mirror. No. I mean a deeper disorientation. Looking at that image and feeling a genuine disconnection between the person I understood myself to be and the person I was looking at. And my response, and the response I'm not particularly proud of, but that I want to tell you honestly, because I think so many of you will recognize it, was to start avoiding photos entirely, to remove myself from them where I could, to decline being them, to disappear from the visual record of my life. And for a while, I framed that idea that I was avoiding photos as a small thing, just a preference, a personal quirk. I don't love photos. I mean, who does really? But here's what I eventually had to be honest about with myself. Avoiding the camera was not a small thing. It was a symptom of something much larger because the not wanting to be seen in photos was not really about the photos. It was about not wanting to be seen, period. It bled into everything. I stopped seeking out social situations as readily as I once had. I became more reluctant to reconnect with old friends I hadn't seen in a while. Not because I didn't want to see them, but because I genuinely didn't want to see their reaction to seeing me, the concern on their faces, the careful way people look at you when they notice something and they don't know whether to say anything or not. And I couldn't bear the thought of being someone who people worried about. So I pulled back. Not dramatically, not in a way that was obvious to anyone else, but quietly, steadily. I made myself smaller. In a literal sense, yes, but more importantly, in every other sense. I took up less space. I was less present. I was less there. And the moment I understood that, the moment I traced the avoiding photos thread all the way to the pulling back from life reality it was connected to, that was an aha moment, a serious one. Because the thing with the photos, it wasn't about vanity. It wasn't about how I looked in a picture. It was about what I was losing moments, people, experiences, presence, my own life slowly, quietly contracting around me. And I decided I didn't want it to contract anymore. I wanted it to expand. And I want to stop here for a second and ask you something, because I think this particular aha moment is one that a lot of women will recognize in some form, even if the specific details look different. Is there something in your life, something specific, something you might have told yourself is a small preference or a quirk or just the way you are, that is actually about not wanting to be seen? Not wanting to be present, not wanting to be in the room. And I want you to give yourself permission to think about that honestly, because sometimes the aha moment is not the dramatic event. Sometimes it's in that quiet, uncomfortable recognition of the thing you've been doing to protect yourself and what it's actually costing you. Now, the aha moments I've shared so far were all about my own body, my own experience, my own life. But if I'm honest, some of the most powerful ones didn't happen to me directly. They happened around me, but I watched them and I felt them. And I'm not going to use names here. I'm not going to identify anyone, but I want to tell you some of the things that I witnessed because I think the experience of watching people you know, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, people you deeply care about in your inner circle, people in your wider circle, watching those people struggle with health consequences connected to weight and health is one of the most common and one of the most quietly devastating sources of aha moments in for women in midlife. And I think it almost never gets talked about because it's complicated, isn't it? I get it. You're not just observing someone's health situation from a distance. You're watching someone you care about, someone whose struggle is real and painful and deserving of compassion and love and empathy, not judgment. At the same time, something in you is taking note. Something in you is quietly, uncomfortably recognizing that that could be me. That might be me. If I don't change direction, that is the road I'm on. And I want to name that feeling, the one that lives somewhere between genuine empathy and genuine fear. Because I think we don't talk about it enough. We feel guilty for having it, as if noticing the parallel between someone else's situation and our own trajectory is somehow a betrayal of them. It is not. I think it's one of the most human and most honest responses available to us. And for me, it was a significant source of motivation for my own health transformation. I knew someone who had to start traveling with supplemental oxygen because of how severely her health had been affected by the years of carrying significant excess weight. And I want you to think about what that means in practical terms. Literally, oxygen, a tank of oxygen with tubes to travel anywhere. The planning required, the logistics, the things that become impossible or enormously complicated, the family members that she couldn't visit as easily, the places she couldn't go to, the life that had quietly become smaller and more limited as her health had deteriorated. And I sat with that, with this woman who I knew, really sat with it, not with judgment, not for a moment, please don't mistake me, but with empathy and with a very clear, very direct question to myself. Is that a possible version of my future? And what am I going to do about that? There was something else. I had a lunch with a large group of women. It was once a month for several months for a long time. Women who were, on average, about a generation older than me, 15 to 20, 25 years older than me. And I noticed something during that lunch that I haven't forgotten. The conversation inevitably kept turning to health, to various conditions, to various medications and procedures and management plans and hospital appointments. And it wasn't a morbid conversation, it was just their reality. That's what life had become for many of them. And again, I don't say this with judgment or shame. I say this with empathy and love. But I remember sitting there, younger by most of the women by 15, 20, 25 years. And I thought, I'm not far from this reality, not as far as I'd like to be. And then there was a moment, I have to tell you about this one because it never left me, where a woman at the lunch quietly asked one of the waiters for a different chair, a sturdier one, also one without arms so she could sit in it more comfortably. And I watched her ask the waiter quietly, and you could tell she was embarrassed. And I felt that embarrassment with her, not pity, recognition, because I knew in my body that I was not far from being in that position myself. That the chair thing, that specific, quiet, practical, daily accommodation that had become necessary when you're carrying significant excess weight, I knew it. I'd had my own versions of it, wondering whether a particular chair I would hold, choosing where to sit based on the structural considerations rather than preference or conversation. The calculations you make when nobody else knows that you're making them. And I felt that woman's quiet shame as if it were my own, because in some ways it was. These are the aha moments I did not choose. These ones came from watching, from witnessing, from the quiet, unwelcome clarity of seeing a possible future and deciding with some urgency that I wanted a different one. And I'm not telling you about them to make you feel afraid, but because I think many of you have your own versions of these moments. People in your life, things you've witnessed, things you have felt, both empathy and warning. And if you've had those moments, if there's someone in your life whose situation has landed in you as a kind of clarity about your own, I believe that is not something to feel guilty about. That is your motivation speaking, and it's worth listening to. Now, I want to talk about the positive aha moments, the ones about aspiration rather than fear, about what I was moving toward, not just what I was running from. And I want to be honest with you about something first, because I think the honest version is more useful than the polished one. When I look at the world around me, when I look at the women who are older than me, women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, I do not have as many clear, vivid examples of radiant health and vital, active, abundant living as I would like. The reality is, if we're honest, most of us don't. Most of us have far more examples in our lives of people who are struggling with their health than people who are thriving in the way that we hope to thrive. And pretending otherwise, pretending that I had multiple perfect role models of aging vibrantly who inspired me, that would simply be false. So, what did my positive aha moments actually look like? Well, they were smaller, they were more personal, more about my own body than about someone else's. It was the first time I walked that same neighborhood route, the same route where the 80-year-old woman with her dog had passed me so effortlessly, and it felt easy. And months later, when I even ran that route, and it wasn't a big deal, that was an aha moment. Not dramatic, just this quiet, almost disbelieving realization that something that had been hard was no longer hard, that my body had changed, that I had changed. The first time I climbed a flight of stairs and arrived at the top without stopping, without breathing harder than I should, without making any of the small internal calculations and compensations that have become so habitual that I'd stopped noticing them, and frankly, without being a sweaty mess from all the effort. That was an aha moment. The first time I said yes to something I would have previously declined, a social invitation, a photo, a situation where I would have been visible, present, out in the world in a way that would have made the previous version of me want to shrink. And I said yes, and I went, and I was fully there. Those were my positive aha moments, not grand, not cinematic, but real and cumulative. And in the end, I would argue just as powerful as the fear based ones because they showed me what was possible. They built the evidence slowly and undeniably that the direction I was moving in was taking me somewhere I genuinely wanted to go. And here is something I want to say directly to those of you who don't have a clear positive role model, who can't point to someone older in your life and say, that, that is what I want. If that's you, then I want to offer you this. You can be the example for someone else. You can be the woman that someone else looks at in 15 years and thinks, that is what I want. That is where I want to go. That is the road I want to be on. Because the reality is, losing weight and transforming your transformation is not just for you. It is the positive aha moments you create for every woman watching you, every woman in your life who sees you choosing differently, every woman who comes to me because they saw what was possible through your story. That is a powerful thing to carry with you. And I want to take a moment to bring in some of the science into this now, not to lecture you, but because I think understanding why multiple aha moments actually works neurologically and psychologically is what makes this feel like a real strategy rather than just a consolation prize. And the research on long term behavior change is very clear on something that the dice industry absolutely does not want you to know. And it is this: single dramatic motivational events, however powerful in the moment, are almost never what sustains lasting change. Instead, what sustains lasting change is something researchers call autonomous motivation. Motivation that is deeply personal, deeply connected to your own values, your own vision, your own life. Motivation that belongs to you, not to a program or a plan or a before and after photo somebody showed you on Instagram. And the remarkable thing about autonomous motivation is that it doesn't arrive in a single lightning bolt. At least that's not my experience. That's not the experience of many of the women I work with. Instead, it's built piece by piece, aha moment by aha moment, until the motivation is no longer dependent on any one event or any one feeling, because it is so woven into your understanding of who you are and what your life is for. The research also tells us something fascinating about the two types of motivation I described earlier: the moving away from motivation and the moving towards motivation. Studies show that both engage different systems in the brain and serve different psychological functions. Fear based motivation, the kind that comes from witnessing consequences you desperately want to avoid, that tends to be particularly powerful at getting you started, at breaking that inertia, at making you move when everything else has failed to move you. Aspiration based motivation, the vision of what you want to become, the pull towards the life you want, that tends to be what sustains you over the long term, because it is connected to positive emotion, to hope, to a version of yourself you are genuinely excited to meet. And positive emotion is what keeps you going when the difficult days come, as they always inevitably do. But I believe truly that both matter. Both are real, both serve a function. And the most successful, the most durable health transformations tend to be the ones that draw on both. And that is exactly what's happened for me. The fear got me moving, the vision kept me going. And the accumulation of aha moments, large and small, negative and positive, expected and completely surprising, personal and in the wider community. That is what built the motivation that has held me all this time, and it still holds. Okay, now I want to get a bit practical here because everything I've shared today is only as useful as what you do with it. And what I want you to do is this: I want you to find your own aha moments, both categories. The ones that move you away from something that you want to avoid, and the ones that move you towards something that you want in your life. Because I genuinely believe that knowing your own aha moments, really knowing them, connecting to them, not in a vague theoretical sense, but in a specific, visceral, emotionally real sense, that is one of the most powerful things you can do for your long term motivation. So I'm going to walk you through this now, not quickly. I want you to actually do this, not just listen to it and move on. And hit pause and come back to this episode if you need to. First, let's focus on the negative aha moments. What are you afraid of? And I shared some of my own raw personal stories. So, really give yourself permission to go deep here. What are you afraid of when it comes to your weight and your health and your active life? Not in a vague, this would be bad kind of way, in a very specific, this is the version of my life I am terrified of living kind of way. What have you seen firsthand? What have you experienced in your own body? What moment, however small, however quiet, has given you a clear, uncomfortable glimpse of the road you're on if nothing changes. Maybe it was a doctor's appointment. Maybe it was something you couldn't do that you used to be able to do, that you want to be able to do, that you should be able to do, but you can't. Maybe it was someone in your life. Maybe it was a photo, a flight of stairs, or a conversation that made something suddenly very clear. Whatever it is, name it. Don't rush past it. Don't soften it. Let it be as real as it actually is, because it is real and it is information and it is one of your most powerful motivators, even though it's uncomfortable to look at directly. Now, second, let's focus on the positive aha moments. What do you want to move towards? And I want to acknowledge that this one actually can be harder for many of us because, as I said earlier, most of us have examples of what we're afraid of becoming, but fewer of us have examples of what we aspire to become. So if you don't have a specific role model, that's okay. Work with what you've got. But focus on questions like, what do you want your body to feel like on the days when it feels good? What are the things you want to be able to do physically, socially, in terms of presence and energy and just being fully present in your life? Things that you're not doing fully now. What does the version of you that you are building look like? Not just how does she look in a swimsuit? What is she doing? What is she capable of? Who is she with? And what is her life like? Where is she fully present? Get specific. The more specific, the better. Because a vague aspiration is almost impossible to return to on a hard day. But a specific, vivid, emotionally resonant vision of what you want is something you can actually hold on to. And here's one more thing I want to say before I tell you about a tool that I think can really help with this. Your aha moments are not a one time exercise. I believe that they're a practice. They are something that you return to again and again, and they're a collection that you continue to add to over time. Because as your journey continues, new aha moments will come. Some will be negative, new experiences of consequences, new moments of clarity about what you want to avoid, and some will be positive. And I want to tell you the positive ones that come during the transformation are some of the most extraordinary moments you will ever experience. The first time something that used to be hard becomes easy, that's incredible feeling. The first time you show up somewhere fully when you've been showing up half fully or hiding in the background for so long, that's incredible. The first time your body does something you had stopped believing it could do, oh, you feel like Superwoman in those moments. And those moments will come. I promise. And when they do, I want you to receive them, really receive them, not brush past them in pursuit of the next goal. Actually stop and acknowledge them. This is an aha moment. This is why I'm doing this. And let it become part of the cumulative motivation that will carry you forward through your health transformation. Now, if you want to help with this, I have a free 8-minute guided meditation linked in the show notes I want to tell you about because I know that sitting down with a piece of paper and working through your aha moments on your own can feel hard. So, this meditation was created specifically to help you connect with your deepest, most personal motivation, the real why underneath all the surface reasons, in a way that stays with you. It's 8 minutes, it's free. And in my opinion, it's the most powerful shortcut I can offer you for doing this work in a way that genuinely lands and helps you. Go and download it. The link is in the show notes. Use it right now. Use it this week, not someday, this week. And one more thing while we're talking about what gets in the way of staying connected to our motivation. Because I know for so many of us, one of the biggest challenges is not identifying your aha moments, it's staying connected to them on the days when cravings hit, when willpower is low, when the difficult moments come, and the pull towards old patterns feel very strong. And I want to tell you that I'm building a dedicated tool to help women with exactly this. A tool specifically designed to help you understand and manage cravings in a way that keeps you connected to your goals rather than being derailed by the moments when things feel hard. I'm genuinely excited about it. The wait list in the show notes. Please go and sign up so you're the first to know when it launches. Now, let me leave you with this as we close today's episode. The women who asked me for my one aha moment, they are almost always disappointed when I tell them that there were many. But I think what they're really asking underneath the question is this: is there hope? Is there something that could happen that would make this feel possible? Is there a version of the story where someone like me, with my history, with my struggles, with all the times I've tried and stopped, actually gets there and achieves not only the weight loss goals, but the true health transformation that I want? And my answer to them, my answer to you is yes. Absolutely, 1,000% yes, but not because of one lightning bolt moment, because of the accumulation, because the aha moments that come one at a time, some painful, some joyful, some chosen, and some completely unexpected, each one adding to the weight of knowing deep in your body that this matters, that you matter, that the life on the other side of this is worth everything it takes to get there. The thing is, the transformation I made took 2.5 years. That timeline is not cinematic. And it did not happen in a single moment. It happened in 1,000 moments. In the hiking poles to the bathroom, and a seat offered on the metro, and an old woman walking her dog, and a photo I almost hid from. In watching people I know and I love face consequences I was afraid of. In the first walk that felt easier than I thought. In the first yes when I could have said previously no. In the first time I was fully, completely present in a room. In the time that I sat on a chair without giving it a second thought. And those moments built something that holds, that is still holding, that will hold. And your moments are building something too, right now. Even the ones that feel like setbacks, even the ones that feel like nothing, every moment of honest awareness, every moment of genuine connection to why this matters, every tiny step in the right direction, it is accumulating. Even when you cannot see it, it is accumulating. So I want you to hear this today. You are not waiting for your aha moment. You are in the middle of it. And I'm here with you every single step of the way. You've got this. I am so proud of you for being here. I genuinely mean that. And I will see you in the very next episode. Now, before you go, don't forget the free 8-minute motivation meditation is in the show notes. That is your first step. Go and download it. Use it this week to work through your own aha moments in a way that actually lands and truly ignites your motivation. And the waitlist for my cravings tool is also there. If staying connected to your motivation on the hard days is something you struggle with, and let's be honest, for most of us it is, this is something that I'm building specifically for you. Sign up so you're the first to know when it launches. If today's episode resonated with you, if something I shared sounded like something you felt but never heard out loud, please share it with one woman in your life who needs to hear it. Someone who is waiting for her one big aha moment. Someone who doesn't know yet that the accumulation of all those moments is the answer. Just forward it. Just, I thought of you. That is enough. A review on Apple Podcasts takes under 2 minutes and helps more women find this show. Every single one matters. Everything, my free meditation, the Cravings to Weight List nutrition guide, sugar decoder guide, and details of my one-to-one coaching are all in the show notes. Take care of yourself. You deserve it, all of it. And thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you want more real, honest guidance on losing weight and transforming your health sustainably in midlife and beyond, you're in the right place. Subscribe here and get my strategies, mindset shifts, and the tools that actually work for women 40 and above. No BS, no quick fixes, just real transformation. Don't forget, you deserve to feel good in your body and life. I believe in you and I'm cheering you on every single step of the way. Have an amazing day. For the obligatory legal disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, nutritionist, therapist, medical professional, or similar. All information shared on this podcast is purely for informational purposes and does not constitute medical advice. It is entirely your personal choice and responsibility as to what information you use. Please consult your own medical professional for any medical advice.